Okay, it's Friday night, everybody, and that means it's another episode of the ASEA 5 or Redox 5. And you know what? It is absolutely not 5 o'clock anywhere in the world. I checked. Amazing. So in any case, I'm Dr. Maureen Hayes from Galveston, Texas, and I've got our regulars on here, Jim and Ann Glenn from San Antonio, Texas. Jim's our big money man, and Anna's our beautiful personal trainer and nutritionist. And of course, we have the unbelievable Dr. Lee Osler, author and dentist extraordinaire, has written the book Redox Matters, Healthy Matters, Why It Matters, and more to follow. And tonight we have a very special guest, Dr. Rich Michaels. He's a Carolina guy, went to Chapel Hill undergrad and graduated from Duke Medical School. He's a family practitioner, practices what we call concierge medicine, and is an incredible believer in what we're going to be talking about tonight, which is redox signaling molecules. In fact, like so many medical professionals who get involved with this, and I should stop and say that Dr. Lee Osler, Dr. Rich Michaels, and myself are all members of our medical professional board. And it's interesting when you ask how we got involved, every single one of us came in because of a personal story and a personal experience. And he has a beautiful story about his grandson, Gideon, that we'll have him get into. But before, I'd love for Dr. Lee Osler to come on and talk about or tell us what we're talking about here. What is this technology that we're sharing with the world? Dr. Lee?
Well, thanks, Maureen. And hello, everybody. Another wonderful, beautiful Friday evening, at least here on the West Coast of the United States. We're so happy to have Dr. Rich with us. So we probably want to just make a disclaimer right now. All of us are independent associates of a company named ASEA Global, headquartered in the state of Utah. This is a cellular health company that has chosen a unique distribution model for getting the cellular health products into now 33 countries around the world. Because this is a supplement and not a drug, which is where it was headed in the initial research and development phase of it, but it was moved sideways into the supplement arena. But because of that, we do not make claims, we do not make medical diagnoses, and we do not use this to treat named diseases or conditions. This is a cellular health supplement that makes our cells work better. I think we can begin with the premise that if we're sick, you name the disease, condition, or whatever it is that you have or that's your favorite to think about, whatever it is, you're that way largely because cells first weren't functioning properly. And this is what I call the doctor within. This is our self-healing abilities to be able to manage our state of health and wellness in an environment that is constantly threatening to us, environmental stressors, and disease agents that we're exposed to. And the bottom line with cellular health is about how we have increased resilience and the capability to withstand the threats that keep coming at us. With that, Dr. Rich, please come on and talk to us about what got your attention with this, where you came from. This kind of came out of the blue, out of left field, as I recall the story. So welcome aboard tonight.
Okay, well, thanks, Lee. Appreciate that. I want to make one other disclaimer. I'm probably going to alienate some of the people on the call. Now, not the Aussies or anybody like that, but we have a sport called ice hockey. And you can see.
Lee, Rich, we're not supposed to go political here, buddy.
I know.
This is a family show.
Yeah, I know. But, well, Jim, I hope that our team plays the Dallas Stars in the finals. See, I'm predicting.
What's that? What are the Dallas Stars?
Nobody.
I know the Cowboys, but what?
No, the Dallas Stars is one of the big hockey team out west, and I hope we're going to meet you guys. Okay.
So, well, Rich, is that really a sport?
Let's get you on the ice. Let's get you on the ice, Lee. Come on, baby.
Do you play? Are you an ice hockey guy?
My dad played, actually. My dad played he played goalie before they had masks, so that tells you something about his mental state.
That's why you became a doctor.
Yeah.
That's
Look,
right.
mom, no teeth. Yeah.
That's
That
right.
tells
It's a
That's
everything.
right.
dangerous sport. Oh,
But at any rate, no, thanks so much, guys, for having
Let's
me
get back on track, Rich.
Okay, we'll get back on track. I took some mine, so now it's working, and I'm back on track. But no, but seriously, Lee, as Maureen said earlier, you know, I've been a busy doc. Started a faith-based practice in 1983, and you know, just built a thriving family practice and volume-based practice. I mean, my days were, you know, 14-hour days, 6 days a week, and then before and after church on Sunday. And life was on a treadmill that was so fast, it was ridiculous.
Mhm.
And
Hey,
as many
Rich.
health professionals, yes.
I have never heard that before, that term, volume-based practice. It makes a lot of sense. I think that's kind of what's driving a lot of people crazy about our medical system today, but I've never heard it said like that before. And it's getting, one of my favorite words is worser. It's getting worser today than where it was 10 years ago. Oh, we lost Maureen. She went bye-bye.
he'll be back.
So go ahead. I'm sorry. I've just never heard that before like that. Thank you.
Yep. So volume-based medical practice. And honestly, the reason I say that is because people would come to me with things outside the pharmaceutical realm. And that was my training. I mean, that was my training, was how to utilize pharmaceutical-based products to the best of my ability, to the best of our knowledge. And that was the box within which I worked. And, you know, other than some lifestyle things, that was pretty much it. And when people would come to me, hey, I've got something you ought to look at, or I think it could be helpful. It wasn't a smokescreen. It was definitely not trying to dump them to the curb. I just didn't have time. I did not have time. So that's the way life was going, very, very fast paced, busy, until life happens. And life does happen to all of us at different times. And mine was 2 days after Christmas, after seeing the family and having a great time. I get a phone call just as I'm starting to see patients in the morning from one of my daughters. And she says, Gideon is having some problems, some issues. Here's his symptoms. Probably 2 or 3 sentences came out of her mouth. And honestly, I said, honey, you just got to get him in the car, get him to the pediatric emergency room, which is at the time he was 13. And you got to get him there. I mean, you got to get him there now. And she did. And within 2 to 3 hours of initial evaluation, he was transferred to my alma mater, Duke.
Hey, Rich.
And the problem, yes, sir.
I don't mean to keep interrupting you, but I will. How long had he been dealing? Hey, what do you expect? How long had he been dealing with those issues before he had that episode?
Well, yeah, the crescendo event was rather sudden.
Oh, okay.
So the crescendo event was very, very sudden. I think there were some preliminary things that set him up for that event, though.
Okay.
And so he spends now the next 5 or so weeks as the star patient in Duke on the pediatric side. And
Hey,
folks,
Rich,
you never
yes,
want to be
it's my
that
turn.
person.
You can call me Jim Jr. Can you share with us? I got to say, life changes in a second, and you never want that caller wanted to happen. But can you share with us, like, what kind of symptoms he was having? What had you so concerned?
Sure. You know, Maureen, he had brain challenges out the wazoo. He had symptoms that would really, it made me think immediately of life-threatening infection in the central nervous system. I mean, he was confused. He had fever. I mean, it was extremely scary. We don't see that as much nowadays with different things that have happened in the pediatric realm, but But all I could think of was, this is happening to him. And so, the next 5 weeks he was there. They did evaluations. He was on multiple regimens. I participated on rounds on the weekends because I wanted to be there. And honestly, it was pretty hard because they were doing the right things. I kind of helped out a little bit on a couple of things I thought about. But the best minds, I mean, Duke has some brilliant people, and they have access to brilliant people who are not part of their faculty, but they can share with a lot of people. And they even went out and did soil samples. I mean, they did the whole 9 yards. And honestly, when he ended up leaving, he had to go to a pediatric rehab hospital. He had, I think this is a 13-year-old kid. He had a feeding tube. He would face plant. I mean, I had to literally assist him to the bathroom. He was impaired cognitively. He could hear, he could understand, but he could not speak. He could not articulate. He could not get words out in any meaningful way. So, very, very neurologically brain challenged, needless to say. And he went through the rehab process. There was a little bit of slight improvement in a couple of these areas, but basically the family was basically having to reconfigure their home. I mean, they have now a 13-year-old kid who is dramatically different and has tremendous challenges. And so they went through the next few months because, Duke, as hard as they tried, I mean, we have limits within our basic science realm, within their toolkit, so to speak, and there was nothing they could do. So, we're faced with, big challenges there, and lotions, potions, contraptions. I mean, you can imagine my daughter and his daddy, they were just going through life savings, trying everything they could find on the internet, and really nothing was working. And, they reached out really out of, just please pray for us. We're losing our minds. We're losing our money, our savings, and Gideon's having the roughest time. And through one person telling another person, I often have called this the love story. One person reaching out to another person who knew about these, you call this the Redox 5, knew about Redox molecules. And basically that person who went to high school with my daughter said, hey, my mom's having a brain challenge. It's not the same thing as your son, but she took this stuff that has these Redox molecules in it. And, she's doing amazingly well. And they gave her a horrible prognosis. And, maybe it would help your son. Well, that story got told, and the molecules got to their house, and it stayed on the shelf in the pantry for at least another month or so, because they were still going through all these other things and nothing's working. So finally they said, hey, what about those molecules? So that started the ball going. And basically, folks, my daughter homeschools the kids. She knew Gideon backwards and forwards. And within just a few weeks of it, in taking the molecules at a pretty low dose, actually, she saw amazing changes.
Hey, Rich.
Yes.
I'm assuming your daughter called you up before they started to take the molecules to get your opinion.
Thank goodness she didn't, Jim. Thank goodness she didn't. I'll tell you why. Because it happened probably, let's see, within 4 weeks or 5 weeks, I think, of him ingesting. When you have a big, they have 12 kids now. Okay. When you have a lot of kids, there's always a birthday, and you try to bunch the birthdays together. So there was going to be a birthday celebration. And she said, she knew we were coming up. And she said, hey, Dad, Gideon's amazing things are going on. And I mean, he's getting better. And do you mind hearing about it? And I said, geez, are you kidding me? I had felt so impotent as both his grandfather and as a doctor, because I'm supposed to know everything, right? MD, mighty deity, right? That's a big laugh. But anyway, that's a big laugh. But I'm supposed to.
I like it.
I'm supposed to. So here we go. I go into this birthday thing and they start talking about what he's taking. I don't have a foggy clue. I don't have a foggy clue. So
No
they're talking redox molecules. And I'm thinking, I mean, I still have my biochemistry book from medical school. And there were like, I think 2 pages on it. Okay, 2 pages. Because we thought it was nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so anyway, bottom line, Jim, the reason I'm so glad I didn't is because I could have possibly thwarted the whole thing. I would have said, gee, and I don't know anything about it. What is this stuff? It's hocus pocus stuff, I don't know if I would give him that. I mean, I don't know of any pharmaceutical study or anything like that. And I don't know. So
Salt Lake City. That's it.
Yeah. So I'm glad she didn't until that birthday. But by then he had been having some major improvements. So that N of 1 was my grandson. That made a big difference. Okay. That made the difference for me. And I had to stop in my tracks. As busy as I was, I had to say, the best minds, we had no answers for this kid. And he happens to be my grandson. And now he's doing this. What in the world is this stuff? And so that prompted me to, go out and buy hundreds of dollars of textbooks. I felt like I was back in horrible medical school all over again. I mean, it was like, but I had a different attitude. I wasn't being tested on it because something was working for my grandson. So I said, geez, I've got to figure out, is this real or what? And the bottom line is that, oh yeah, it's real. And it wasn't just because it was working on my grandson, it's because the biochemistry is real. It is absolutely real. Now, the application and how it changed his life was him, okay? But believe me, my daughter says, she said, ever since that discovery, so to speak, she has her family back. She has her family back. And I have my grandson back. So, that got me to stop. And boy, what a journey ever since then. Because, it's not just his situation. By the way, I said he was face planting in the hospital just recently. Now, he's been on this now for 6 years. And he came in with adult runners, by the way, because when you get to a certain age group, you get into the adult category. And of course, as a runner athlete, there's a difference between being 19 and 30. You're much more mature as an athlete at 30. But he came in 5th in the Raleigh area in a road race against adults. So hallelujah, what a turnaround, there has been in his life. So that was probably longer than you wanted to hear, Maureen, and Lee, but that's how it shook me to the core. It made me look, and the science is real. It is absolutely real. And wow, what an application. And I'm just so glad that it got me out of that little box of just pharmaceuticals and a broader box of what's outside there. What is outside traditional medicine that can help people and make a difference? And to be associated with a company like ASEA that wants to be a force for good in the world is simply amazing.
That's right. And how much was he taking when she first started him? When she first got him on molecules, was he on a minimum dose?
Yeah, just just following 4 ounces a day.
Of course, he was 13.
He was
Yeah.
13 back then.
Yeah.
But he was
it-
challenged.
But
Yeah.
he was
Yeah.
challenged. I mean,
Yeah.
knowing now, if she had come to me and I was knowledgeable and so forth, I would have probably said a different dose of that.
Yeah. We know a lot more now. I mean, when we got started, it's so interesting, and it's such a God thing. I hope people don't mind my saying that, but
agree.
honestly, the way we're trained, those of us who have a traditional Western medical education, we're so cynical and we're so skeptical, and I call it my era of ignorance and arrogance. And there's really nothing more dangerous than that, to be ignorant about something and totally opinionated, which for some reason as physicians we feel like we have the right to do. But if somebody had just brought me just the information, somebody did. Somebody tried to give me the information. I wasn't open to it. It's when you have a loved one that has a challenge and you're looking for answers and you can't find them. Your grandson, my husband, Lee's wife, your friend, Jim and Ann, your friend,
yeah.
with his son, and then of course Jim's back. It's so amazing. Once you have a personal experience with this and you realize what you have your hands on, nobody can take that away from you. You'll fight anything. Nobody can kind of push you off of your conviction, because we know what we know now, and it's a wonderful thing. And because of that, you've been able to help hundreds, if not thousands of people because of knowing about redox signaling molecules. So,
Yeah, I had two quick. Yeah, I had two quick points. So if you had mentioned you might would have considered him doing a little bit more, and I know he was young, but he also had a pretty significant challenge. If money wasn't an option for people and they were willing to try more than the minimum dose on the bottle, minimum amount on the bottle, I think they would see the results quicker and then their belief would be even stronger. And then my second point is the skeptics, to change a skeptic, don't y'all think that they need to have an experience, whether it's in her case, I mean, she by faith had your grandson start. Someone else, like I saw a lady today, she needed the experience through our gel. I mean, our topical gel, you can give somebody experience within 10 minutes just to show them signaling's taking place. Not to say it's a magic potion or anything. They got to use it a lot longer, but it's getting those skeptics to listen. And I think sometimes it just takes a simple experience, whether it's a gel test or beyond the molecules long enough to see a change. What do y'all think?
Guys, want to kick in real quick. Lee, can you go ahead and give the disclaimer? Because I think you did already, but can you kind of redo it again? Because we want to be really cautious here. And at some point in time, we are going to talk about that other study that came up. But Lee, can you why do we have to be cautious? What's the deal about that?
Well, this is an interesting conversation because Rich has started us off by giving us the perspective or the worldview of a trained physician in the world of pharmacology and conventional medicine, which is a reductionist, philosophy of care where one thing fixes one thing. And the thing with cellular health and molecular biology is it's a pleiotropic kind of concept. And what that means is that one thing affects many. And that doesn't fit the drug model. The whole world of we'll call it, not necessarily to be condescending toward it, but big pharma, the pharmaceutical industrial complex is today worldwide is positioned for better or worse in a research and a profit arena where they use medications to suppress symptoms under the idea that that's healthcare. And most of us, I think, on this panel, and anybody who, in my opinion, thinks about this long enough realizes that That's more of a disease management, model than it is a wellness or anti-aging model. And so we're really glad that this is a supplement, which is why we can't make claims. It's why we don't speak about curing diseases using that terminology, which I don't think very rarely do you find a pharmaceutical that cures a disease. It just mainly manages symptoms and keeps us mobile and discomfort at bay so that we can remain functional in society. And that's fine as far as that goes. But the thing that makes this really unique, and I want to make this comment, and then maybe Rich, you can expand on this just a little, is there's nothing that we're talking about that is different today than it has been for eons of time. The cells in our bodies work today just like they always have. They were designed this way. They, however you believe that came to be, there are rules of cellular function and metabolic biology that always work. It's like physics, it's gravity, in the cell. These rules always work. So Rich, maybe you could maybe segue from there and explain, well, then why all of a sudden in the last, 10, 15 years, with the advent of what our original biotech research, people, what they developed, we've been electrolyzing, for example, I want to set this up properly. We've been electrolyzing solutions for 200 years. From the beginning of the 1800s, as soon as there was electricity, we figured out how to do this. That's where hydrogen and oxygen, first came from. So what's different today with regards to, because and the molecular biologists, would always tell us that it was impossible that a reactive molecule could sit around very long to do any good. So what's different today? What was the breakthrough, if you would?
Yeah. Well, just a couple things before the thoughts escape me. I love your idea about traditional. We basically, in that realm, that industry, that arm of trying to approach health and disease, it's a unipolar thing. It's basically a one-to-one correspondence. Take A, it will help G. But what we're talking about this evening, and especially for folks who are, hearing maybe this for the first time, I liken the usage of redox molecules to a Swiss Army knife. I mean, if I need a hammer, I do need a hammer, and a hammer is really good to have for driving a nail, but it's not very good for cutting a piece of wood. I'd like a saw, please. With a Swiss Army knife, I've got a single entity, but it's capable of doing a lot of different functionality. And so when Lee's talking about that aspect, I think that really illustrates what redox molecules can do. And honestly, for many, many years, we thought it was a bunch of garbage. It was just a side product of biochemical processes. But little did we know how intricate these tiny little molecules are for communicating and for helping our cells to do the very best and the most efficient job possible. Literally for communication to take place, we need these molecules. We do. Otherwise, the communication in the cells breaks down. And when our cells don't work properly, they're not healthy. Okay. And, oftentimes I'll use an illustration. It's maybe not the best, but again, it's the cell phone because so many people have them. It's a great piece of technology in of itself. But if there's not enough signal, I can't get my hockey scores, right? I can't find out how well my team is winning, I can actually listen to it. I can listen to it streamed. I can send messages. I can look at the radar. I can look at all sorts of things, right? Okay. That's with 4 bars of signal. Tell me what happens to anybody on this call if it goes down to 1 bar, are you communicating well? Is this device working as well as it was with 4? It is not. And the fact of the matter is, our bodies are producing 10% less of these critical communicating tiny little, little nothings really, but they're somethings. They've turned into big somethings because of what they do functionally within our bodies. And so, every decade after age 10, roughly, so you can do the math. I mean, you can figure out where you are on that continuum. You're going to be just by a natural process of aging, you're going to be down that much. And so when we add external stressors that are way out of line, whether it's something we ingest, something in our environment, we're even further kind of out of this balance. And, being a little bit out of balance is good. I was exercising this evening earlier. I was stressing my body. Exercise is good to a certain degree, right? If you pound somebody into submission with exercise, you can damage them badly, right? So when you're out of balance in that exercise, being a little bit is good. Lifting weights. There is a principle there that I'm stressing that muscle. I'm putting a stress on it, but it's going to grow. It's going to become more efficient. As it becomes more efficient, there's hypertrophy. You look better. You're healthier. You're in better balance, literally better balance. So there's so many things. And I think this concept of the balance and, it's fine to have a little bit of stress, but for Gideon, it just whacked him way out. Way out. And so he was in bad need of redox, and fortunately it got to him. But again, I love the idea of something that hits on a multi-pronged level. I think we're fortunate, and as Dr. Hayes said, where redox and our understanding of redox is coming so far, and it's going to continue to plow. I mean, there are institutions that are putting multi millions of dollars into something we thought was junk when I was in medical school. They're not putting multi-millions of dollars into junk. I can guarantee you that. They want a return on their investment, and they're going where the money is, and they know where the science is, and it's in the field of redox. And that whole idea of what that means to our overall health and the health of our cells. So, it's amazing. And, so we've got some science, we've got some things that have, we absolutely know that it can affect things on a genetic level, believe it or not. We now know that. And that's, you talk about, I'm reading an article that has nearly 800 references. It's a huge article on a entity that's really in the limelight. But the point is, I love what the author says. He says that this entity, it's a virus, is actually hijacking. It's actually hijacking our health. And he goes into great detail about that. But I think about hijacking, that's like somebody, I looked up the words, and taking over and using it for a different purpose, forcing it to go down to a different destination or use it for its own purposes. Gideon's livelihood was being hijacked by something different. But you know what? He got it back. Thank the Lord. Providentially. And I think about and I'm gonna give Dr. Osler a plug. I think you folks, if you can look at that book, Healthy Matters. Now he has several books, but the concept of this book is the only way to achieve balanced hormesis in life, which is this kind of give and take. this good give and take, pulling and pushing, this good thing that happens in our bodies. Ingesting Redox is a huge, huge leg up. But you know, we almost abdicate our health. I want everybody on the call to really understand that don't abdicate your health, because there are things out there that want to grab it. There are things out there going to try to hijack your health. And there's no point in us not following a healthy lifestyle. And in his book, Dr. Osler points out, hey, look at your diet, look at exercise, look at simple things like sleep, water intake. I mean, there are just some basic things that we can do. And wow, when you augment that, when you're taking or applying Redox molecules to your lifestyle, I mean, talk about pushing the signal up from 1 bar to 4. Now, that's the place I want to be. That's the place that I want to advocate. And that's the place, quite honestly, that as a health professional, you know, I've got this different arm. I've got this different arm that I can say, hey, let's do this lifestyle. And here's why it works, because it works on this imbalance, this oxidative stress principle. Let's do this. But then if you want to augment that from that perspective, we have Redox.
Hey, Rich, could you turn a little bit on this? And Gideon was 13. He's now what, 19 or 18?
Right, 19.
He's a young person.
Yeah.
You know, the reason why the big pharma industrial research community is looking so seriously at this isn't so much for 13 to 19-year-old people. It's for the old people. Could you talk about why that matters? And, you know, because I think eventually they'll come up with something that will affect these same redox switches in a very specified way, which will give them, you know, it'll give them a drug, right, that they can sell and so forth. But could you speak about the age part? Because let's go to the other end of the spectrum. Like, why does this really matter?
Sure. Well, you know, again, you know, we probably maximize, again, you know, it's always nice to go back to natively, what is our body doing? As you said, the biochemistry's been the same. You know, some of the external challenges are certainly different than they were 100 years ago, but the idea of we maximize our production of these life-sustaining small little molecules, we maximize it, let's say around age 10. It just makes the math easier. So for every decade after that, we drop 10%. So you drop 10%, 10%, 10%, 10%. So without calling a roll call of people's birthdays, you just figure out how many decades you are after age 10. And per decade, it's 10% less and 10% less. So that's in the best case scenario. Then you start adding external stresses, external challenges. And then you throw on the fact that, well, how many people are eating a really good balanced diet? How many people do go through periods of intermittent fasting to challenge and to lower your insulin level? Oh, by the way, how many people are going to the gym or doing pulse training? How many people are getting 7 to 9 hours of sleep per night? How many people, oh, whoop, we just lost a lot of us, right? Okay, so you add all these other challenges on, and it's a cumulative effect. So Lee, there's a concept of time under the curve, an area under the curve. And the longer we are doing this kind of really, you know, everybody jokes about deficit spending and so forth. We'll talk about deficit. This is deficit spending in a big way, except, you know, it's not some fiscal entity out there. It's our bodies. It's your body, folks, on the call. And so you really just have to come to grips with it and say, you know, I may have been doing the very best I could. I may have been really watching my diet. I may have been really watching this. but you can't get away from the fact that it's 10% per decade. You're losing that. So at some point, you come to grips with that and you say, this is where life is, and I want to change that.
Yeah, I agree. And fitting in with Lee's book, Healthy Matters, which, I've been teaching nutrition fitness for a lot of years. So certain things sabotage the effectiveness of these redox molecules. I mean, again, going back to healthy lifestyle, what you choose to eat or put in your mouth. I mean, it's more important than over exercising. But when you are a healthy person, this is just going to, as I've heard before by Stan Gardner, this is going to make you healthier. So here if you use vitamins, which of course we aren't talking about ours tonight, but they're the best out there that I've studied. So the redox molecules will make the healthy living work better. If you are exercising, this is going to help the exercise be more effective. If you are sleeping enough or not sleeping enough, this is going to help you with your sleep. So they go in tandem. And if you know you're in a deficit, you need the molecules to have the most optimal health. So it's pretty exciting that we're a part of that.
But here's a dilemma, guys, is you don't know it until something goes wrong, and people go, oh, I'm healthy, I'm great, I don't need this. Because the cascading, we talk about the cascading effect of molecules, right, in the body being good. But what you were just describing, Rich, is also the cascading down, which is getting worse. And then you never know when it's going to trigger something that maybe you were predisposed to get. And then bam, you get it. Oh my gosh, and then people want to use these molecules to fix them quick. Now, Gideon had a remarkable quicker turnaround. Do these molecules always work? See, this is a huge issue. Maureen, when you were doing the meds, when I was taking, not from you, but I was taking those meds, I wanted it to work right now. We're in a society, Rich, where people want it to work now. And if it doesn't work now, well, give me something else. Can you speak to that?
Well, oh, for sure.
Maureen, maybe you as well, because that was your specialty too. But Rich, you go first.
I'll take just a quickie. There's different ways I communicate that to patients about anything, really. Think about taking your vehicle to get the gas or petrol in it, right? Okay. If you are just topping off the tank because you're going on a trip and it was 2/3 full, how long will it take you to fill up that gas tank? Not very long. If you're coasting into the gas station on fumes, how long will it take you to fill up the gas tank? It will take longer, even though you've got that handle pulled at the same amount. So if you have a reservoir or time under the curve that's really been certainly in a deficit, if you've got a bigger tank to fill, it's going to take longer. And, we can't direct, at least on an internal basis, we can't direct where these molecules go. So that's a part of providential prayer. And I'm going to stay with this. That's why I think 90 to 100 days is really important. I like to use evidence-based medicine when I have evidence-based, when I have it. And that's why I'm a proponent of taking 8 ounces a day. I personally think that has some evidence behind it, and we know what that can do. But in terms of the wow factor, like, wow, did this help me, Jim? At 1 week, it's only about 15% of people that will say, oh, this stuff is great. Oh my gosh. Right. At 1 month, it's about 50%. But, the danger in that is this. If the response rate is roughly 50% at a month, what happens if somebody throws it out after a month?
Yeah.
That's my big fear.
They were very likely to be a responder. They just didn't wait long enough. So at 2 months, it's about 75%. About 3 months of usage, nearly 90% of people will have that wow moment of that this stuff is working. The gel, on the other hand, can be a rather immediate effect. I had a term I called it voodoo gel because I was a very big skeptic. I was absolutely a skeptic. I really was. I mean, we can be, Dr. Hayes was right on. We can be very skeptical. And I was having an extreme amount of discomfort at 12 on a 0 to 10 scale on a part of the body. But I had heard about this. It was very early in my knowledge base. But I had heard people say the gel works. And I thought, yeah, the gel works, right. And I put it on, and within 60 to 90 seconds, it was like, it went from a 12 to like a 2, and I could go to bed. So the gel can be and we can direct where the gel goes. So the gel is a little bit different, but the liquid that we've been talking about, allow it time.
Well, the gel on discomfort is one thing because you can scale it, but somebody you are in front of may not have any discomfort. You can do a simple flexibility, range of motion, and you're going to see a measuring amount. We've seen that at so many different events.
Yeah.
So we know it can work
Okay.
quick.
I'm an ex-stockbroker, so I want to ask Maureen. He mentioned 90% in 90 days, but what about the 10%ers? And maybe Lee pick on this as well, because I know this is one of your favorite topics. Does it always work, even though you don't feel it? Maureen.
Absolutely. It's physiology. It's, and people, it's always nice if people have an experience. The gel can really get their attention. And, I was laughing when Rich was telling a story because I was, we've been using these products for years. And one day I was in the car with my husband. I had horrible abdominal pain. I was like, drive me to the ER. My husband said, why don't you use your magic gel? And I was like, it's not going to work on this. This is horrible pain. So I rubbed it on. 5 minutes later, I was like, oh, never mind. I mean, I couldn't believe it. The pain never came back. It can be very, very spectacular. But you guys, you don't feel your arteries clogging, until you have some sort of problem.
It's too late.
You don't feel your blood pressure going up. You may not feel your blood sugars unless they go too low or too high, and so sometimes you don't feel it when your body's healing either. But that you have a deficit. If you're leaning in the shower hoping that the Irish Spring is going to wake you up, or you're waiting for the coffee to brew to get some energy to go throughout your day, then maybe your mitochondria aren't where they were when you were 10 years old. So we're all going to deal with that. There's no getting away from that. We're going to have fewer mitochondria, which is our powerhouses in our cells, 10%, like Dr. Rich was saying, per decade after puberty. So have some faith. I take vitamin D, and I'm still waiting for sunshine to come shooting out my pores. Hasn't happened yet, but I know that I need it. So the same thing is true here. If you want to optimize your health and optimize everything else you're doing, you have to have the foundation in place. And that's what we're talking about here. Most people will feel something: better sleep, better energy, better mood, better sense of well-being. And then also better effects from the other things that you're doing in your life. So have some faith, give yourself some grace, give yourself some time to heal, and just stay the course. Absolutely, you're worth it. So,
Okay, Lee, there's a lot of us baby boomers out here. Is it ever too late to not start this? Is there a point of no return, or should anybody listening, no matter your age, healthy, not healthy, feeling great, not feeling great? Who should be using this, Lee?
The answer is everybody, because as Dr. Maureen and Dr. Rich already said, it never not works. This is a biochemistry model. And I think this speaks a little bit to, this whole conversation that we have, call it a paradigm of understanding of failed expectations. People, they have an expectation, like, just as an example, on the other side, taking a medication for head pain, headache, and you expect it to do something. And if it doesn't do that, then you go, oh, it doesn't work. I need something stronger or different or whatever. And again, that's a drug model, but it's a mindset that we all have, that when we take something, health related like this, that we have these expectations that it's supposed to fix something. And what it's fixing is at a cellular level. What Maureen just said is, you don't feel your telomeres lengthening or stabilizing or shortening. That you don't feel aging moment to moment. You don't feel cell renewal. You don't feel what we call autophagy, or the Pac-Man eating up. You don't feel detox as it happens. And so the point is, it always works. It's a cellular thing. It's not a drug. We're not treating or suppressing a symptom. If my symptom abates, if it gets better, if it's mitigated in some fashion, it goes back to our original premise. It's doing so because it's fixing something in cellular function. We call it the redoxome, just like a genome or a proteome or whatever at the cellular level. This control over our DNA happens at a very subcellular level, and we're fixing that, and it takes time for some people. And the other thing is that many of us have already been down the road a ways. We've had things happen to us that you can't undo. You can't undo, for example, a broken bone or a heart attack. Those things are part of your health history. And so what we're doing is we're saying, if we're gonna be weller, that's like the worser. If we're gonna be weller, right? We want our cells working at their optimum level that we can possibly make them. That's why this redox lifestyle is such an important element of this whole thing. This is not about drinking ASEA or rubbing it on and getting the molecules in me, and then sitting on the couch and exercising with your thumb on a remote. So yeah, those are my 2 cents worth.
Right. And that's why it's such a beautiful marriage, really. You think about a wonderful dance couple that is just gliding across the room but they work together. One doesn't, women are always right. They start with the right foot, right? The guys go with the left. But if they both go with the same foot, it's going to look clumsy. It's going to not be productive. But this is this wonderful rhythmic balance that is just amazing. And it's, of course, happening on micro levels with all sorts of feedback mechanisms. And it's truly amazing to see that. But again, I love the idea of marrying something that, is kind of easy, honestly. I mean, putting something on my skin to look better, to just change that aging process on that organ, or internalizing it and saying, hey, go to where it needs to go. I'm going to keep pumping it in there, but go where it needs to go. But then when we can augment those things, I can't tell you how many people come to me and they think they're healthy. And we do tests. And if you do enough things that will look deeply, we can detect certain things. And then we see certain signals. We've talked about signals. I look for certain signals, and then it prompts another test. And honestly, folks think they're healthy, but to find plaque already in a 26-year-old woman is a little bit unnerving. And when we see that type of thing going on in people who are apparently healthy, they are not having symptoms, right? But when a plaque ruptures, you have symptoms. And those symptoms can manifest themselves as a heart attack or a stroke, or a pre-heart attack, a pre-stroke. So it's nasty stuff when it becomes symptomatic. But all along, that plaque has been building up. And if you get some inflammation on something that's been fairly stable, but it is there, and pop goes the weasel, and then you get some other stuff going on with the clotting system and all the whole chain of events that happens, and yet it starts as something small and it builds over time. And so, the lack of symptomatology, honestly, is fool's gold.
Agree. I wanted to really quick, because I know Jim wants to comment. The 9-minute video, what experts say, you and Dr. Hayes are in that, which is one of my favorites. I send all the time. And I love your quote about we can actually put these molecules back into someone that's depleted. And if they could just simply, people on the show that haven't started, start getting on them so you can see it will replenish what you're lacking. And if you haven't the courage yet to share with somebody, it took courage for someone to share with each one of us, and then they can see the experience as well. They're depleting, and now you can replenish them.
Yeah.
So I know Jim wanted to.
So the last couple of minutes, guys, there was a study that was just released. I'm going to let Maureen take the lead on this, please. We want to make sure that the word is being spoken correctly about what it is, what it's not. And Maureen, would you please deal with the author of this, Dr. Naidu? Would you kind of maybe go into the story a little bit and share whatever you want? Because we want this message to be clear and loudly heard.
Sure. This is an amazing study that was published in the Journal of Nature, which is a very prestigious medical journal. One of the top 2 that people want to have their articles published in, Nature and Science. I think my husband is a researcher who has been published, and that, to have your information published there is a huge feather in your cap. Dr. Naidu, I've known him for years. He has been nominated for Nobel Prizes in the past. He's credited with having discovered activated lactoferrin and using it to put on meat before it went to market that helped to eradicate some of the pathogens that would cling to the meat and cause problems like toxic shock syndrome that people were aware of back in the 80s, and we don't hear about it anymore. So our founder, the founder of our company, Virtus Norton, when he retired after 35 years from Kraft and General Foods, he went to work with Dr. Naidu. He was on his board. I believe his company is N-Terminus. And so he worked with him, retired again. And that's when he was asked to sit on the board of a failing biotech company. This biotech company is the original company that developed the technology that makes what we now call ASEA, the redox signaling molecules. It was a little different back then. It was a medical biotech company. They were under FDA review trying to become a new drug. Unfortunately, when they brought Virtus in, it was too little too late, and they had really spent, tens of millions of dollars, and they were out of money and couldn't find any any more investors. And so they got sold off. The technology was sold off like a fire sale. And Virtus put together a group of investors that bought that technology. When they were first making the product, he asked Dr. Naidu if he would write a brochure kind of explaining what redox signaling, because most people had not heard of it. And that's when he wrote that brochure that turned into a 500-page medical encyclopedia. Pretty incredible. And so, he and our founder Virtus just have an incredible relationship. And so recently, when Dr. Naidu published his study, not only did he reference redox in his study, how many times, Rich? 73, something like that. He also gave a dedication to our founder Virtus and cites ASEA in that dedication. And you guys, I in all the years that I've been reading medical journals and articles, I've never seen a dedication like that. In fact, I asked my husband about it. I said, he said, "Are you talking about an acknowledgement?" I said, "No, there are not acknowledgements. This is a dedication." So incredible honor, just an unbelievable honor. We're actually looking into what it means with using with the subject matter that Dr. Michaels alluded to, and what it means, what redox's role is there. So y'all understand, this is an independent study. This was not done by our company or by us. This is an incredible publication that is going to kind of push redox into more mainstream. We're already seeing it. 15, 16 years ago when this all came about, nobody was talking about redox. I didn't even know what it was. It's a contraction of reduction and oxidation. And now we have centers that are named Redox for redox science. So this is huge. But next week, I don't know, Jim, if you want to announce it, that you're going to have.
We're going to have Dr. Osler and then Dr. Dick Walker. We're going to be going into quite a bit more detail, and not just on this study, but more so on the NRF2 and the glutathione study. But Dr. Michael, did you want to, because you guys are all on the medical board, and as is Dr. Walker, but is there anything you said you had an analogy, or is that for something else? So that was for something else. Do you want to say anything about this study? And then Dr. Lee, wrap it up.
No, I just wanted to, again, things hijacking our health, things coming in, maybe from the outside, and, be prepared, be like David, that story about how David slew the giant. He didn't just start practicing his sling throwing, when he heard that the giant was out there. He was a trained marksman with that. He guarded the sheep. He had to deal with things. He did that on an ongoing basis. So, adopt a hermetic lifestyle, a redox lifestyle, and then fold this in, and then you've got an incredible way to deal with things that might come in, you never know, from the outside to hijack your health.
Thank you,
That's
Dr.
right.
Michael. Lee?
Yeah, this has been a great hour with you, Dr. Rich. So appreciate you being here. I just want to one more time reiterate the disclaimer. This article, as people will come to learn about it, has the potential of taking some of us sideways into this area of saying that this cures stuff. And this is a really tricky, thin ice kind of proposition that we have to remain compliant, because otherwise, when we start speaking about in terms of treating or curing or diagnosing or anything like that, the FDA begins to look at us and say, well, you're now a drug. You're making claims. You need to stand down. And so there's some potentially, serious repercussions that could happen to us. And so we have to really mind our manners and recognize, from this what it is we can appropriately say and not. And so my point of emphasis here, to follow what Rich just said, is that this is about cellular health. It's about resilience. It's about, how do I become so enabled and so capable and so resilient in my defensive capabilities, because I'm playing offense, right? That when something comes along and I get exposed to it, or I suffer something like an injury or whatever it is, that my body, my cells are so tuned, they're so capable, they're so up-regulated, that whatever it is that hits me has little, if any, effect on me. Think of a fire department. They're not sitting in the back room just playing cards. They're always on the ready. They're training, they're perfecting they're polishing their equipment. They're making sure that it operates. They don't have really downtime per se, because they have protocols they go through so that they're always on the ready. Whatever it is that comes along, they can march out the door and meet at full force. And I think that's a good metaphor for what this cellular health idea is all about. When you mind the rules of the cell, and then when you overlay it, as Rich just suggested, with a supplement that enables your cells to function at even a higher level, you are even that much more resilient and capable of withstanding whatever it is that comes along. So let's be really mindful of this as we think our way through this study and how we articulate it and think about it. But in your quiet moments, when you become exposed to what it is, you will be highly impressed with the central criticality of cellular function related to the redox signaling pathway genes that we're talking about.
Right.
Wow.
That's great.
Yeah, that was phenomenal. Thank you, guys. So again, we'll be back next week. This recording will be up at Redox Matters. Dr. Osler, thank you so much for that website. Redoxmatters.com. It'll be up within the hour. Please get back to the one that invited you to the call or to the recording. They deserve it for bringing it to you. We're all here because someone shared it with us. I don't know where I would be. You know, Rich, you got choked up with Gideon.
Yeah.
I don't think I would be alive right now if it wasn't for my best friend. And he almost lost his son, like you almost lost your grandson. You know, Lee, with your wife, getting your wife back, and Maureen with the amazing Dr. Joaquin.
Yeah.
The world would be a much lesser place without, frankly, all of us. And we owe it to people to share this as a human. Dr. Carmen Keith once said, if you don't share this, you're selfish. Because everybody deserves to hear about it. We don't do advertising. We are the advertising. But please respect the one that shared it with you and get back to them. We love doing this. Maureen, thank you, as always. You're awesome. She will not be with us. She'll be on a trip,
We'll miss you, but have fun.
on a see you trip. And she said she might join us, but I don't think
No, she'll be so busy.
she might be doing some other stuff.
Fun.
So Lee, thank you. We'll see you back next Friday. Dr. Michael, thank you.
Thanks again.
Guys, get this out. Help us get the information out. Help get more people on this, because everybody deserves to be a witness to this and hear this information. So with that, God bless, and we'll see you guys next Friday.
Thanks a lot. Have a great week.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
See you soon.
Bye. Thanks, Rich.
Bye, y'all.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
thanks,
everybody.
guys. Bye.
Bye.